The judge looked me straight in the eye and said, "We're ready to make a ruling." My stomach dropped. I couldn't breathe. My hands clutched the table so tightly, I felt my nails dig into the wood. I thought this was it. I thought I was about to lose my son. Then, out of nowhere, Theo stood up from the gallery. My son, small and unassuming, walked to the center of the courtroom holding a crumpled piece of paper he'd tucked into his Spider-Man backpack that morning. His voice was quiet but clear. "Your Honor," he said, "I want to read something." The entire courtroom froze. Not a single sound. Not even a shuffle. All eyes turned to him, this tiny boy in an oversized navy sweater, standing in front of a judge, gripping a letter with both hands like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. But none of them knew the truth yet. Not the judge. Not the lawyers. Certainly not Margot. My name is Jessa Carter. I'm a mother, a freelance designer, and I have spent the last few years climbing my way back to air after being buried alive in grief. My son is everything to me. Everything. But someone tried to take him from me. Margot. She used to be my mother-in-law. She used to sit in my kitchen sipping tea, pretending to be gracious, while sizing me up with quiet contempt. I thought she was just grieving her son after he died. I thought her hovering was love wrapped in pain. I was wrong. After my husband died in a car accident, after I got the call while making dinner and everything in me shattered, Margot circled like a vulture. She offered help. She brought groceries. She smiled too sweetly. Then she started staying too long, making subtle remarks, quiet critiques. He needs more structure. He doesn't need all this coddling. Some environments are better for children. I ignored it at first. I was too broken to fight, too tired. But when she handed Theo a brochure for a private prep school, one I had never even heard of, and told me some mothers just don't understand what's best, something in me snapped. I drew the line. She didn't like that. Visits were limited. Rules were set. But Margot doesn't follow rules. She started planting ideas in Theo's head. Wouldn't it be nice to have a bigger room? Grandma makes the best pancakes, doesn't she? Don't you wish you lived here all the time? Then one day, my sweet little boy came home and asked, "Mommy, do you think I'd be happier living with Grandma?" I couldn't breathe. I knew then. This wasn't grief. This wasn't love. It was war. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived. Legal documents. She was filing for full custody. Not shared. Full. As if I didn't exist. As if I hadn't carried him, raised him, cried behind closed doors just to stay strong for him. As if I were just some temporary placeholder until she swooped in to fix what she believed I'd broken. That day, I sat on the floor, the petition crumpled in my fist. Theo was in the living room, watching cartoons, unaware that his future had been thrown into the fire. But if Margot thought I would surrender, she didn't know me at all. I got up, and I fought. I documented everything, every passive-aggressive email, every undermining word. Every moment Theo came home confused, distant, second-guessing our bond. I found a lawyer who believed in me, who believed in justice. I stopped apologizing for existing. The hearing stretched over months. I was painted as unstable, poor, emotionally reactive. I smiled through it all. Let them believe I was crumbling. Let Margot think she'd won. But I had a plan. Because revenge isn't rage. Revenge is patience. It's strategy. It's staying quiet while you sharpen the knife. And then my moment came. Theo stood up, letter in hand, eyes locked on the judge. "My daddy died," he said. "But my mommy made sure I never felt alone. She makes me laugh. She lets me wear my superhero shirt even if it doesn't match. She sings when I have bad dreams. Grandma says she's better. But she doesn't know what love feels like. Not like Mommy." He paused, then added, "I don't want to live with her. I want to stay with my mom." Silence. Margot's face cracked for the first time in years. And the judge turned to me. "Case dismissed." full custody awarded. Revenge isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's the quiet, unwavering voice of a child who knows where he belongs. And sometimes it's the woman everyone underestimated, rising from the ashes. I didn't just win my son back. I burned down every lie Margot ever told, without raising my voice. Because the best revenge is being undeniable. As the courtroom emptied, Margot sat frozen in her chair. The confident tilt of her chin, the smug curve of her lips, all of it gone. Her hands trembled. Her eyes, once hard as glass, now blinked rapidly, searching for footing on ground that had vanished beneath her. I walked past her without a word. She didn't deserve one. Outside the courthouse, Theo ran to me and threw his arms around my waist. I dropped to my knees and held him so tightly I was afraid I'd break him. But he didn't mind. He buried his face into my neck and whispered, "We did it." I pulled back and looked him in the eyes. "We did, baby. You were so brave." He grinned, his missing front tooth giving him that crooked charm, and asked, "Can we go home now?" Home. Not a mansion. Not a prep school. Not the cold, curated world Margot promised. Just us. Our small, worn-in house with chipped paint, too many stuffed animals, and a swing that creaks in the wind. "Yes," I said. "We're going home." But this story wasn't just about winning. This was about reclaiming power. Because Margot had tried to write me out of my own life, out of Theo's life, and I had let her inch closer and closer while I told myself she was just hurting. I had given her the benefit of the doubt. But I learned something through all of this. Grief doesn't give you the right to destroy someone else. Control disguised as care is still control. So I changed. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to soften my edges for people who wanted to cut me anyway. I stopped waiting for approval from someone who was never going to see me as anything more than a stepping stone to her version of perfection. And I started building walls around what mattered. Theo and I healed slowly. There were still nightmares. There were still questions. There were still whispers at school, at the grocery store, in places where Margot's influence had seeped like rot into the corners of the town. But I kept walking. Every time someone looked at me with pity or judgment, I smiled. Because they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know what Margot knew now. I don't break easily. And I don't forget. Eventually, Margot moved out of state. A quiet retreat masked as a fresh start. She sent birthday cards, forced, formal, and Theo would glance at them and shrug. He never asked to call her. She was a ghost long before she left. And me? I rebuilt everything. My work grew. I carved out time for myself. I stopped measuring my success by how still I could keep the waters around other people's comfort. I started living out loud. Fierce. Honest. Unapologetic. People sometimes ask me how I stayed so calm through it all. I didn't. I burned. But I channeled every flicker of pain, every betrayal, into a slow and steady fire. I turned the courtroom into my battlefield, and I fought with silence, with proof, with love. That's the thing about revenge. It doesn't always come with shouting, broken windows, or grand gestures. Sometimes, it comes when you smile at the woman who tried to steal your life and walk away holding the very thing she could never touch, your dignity, your peace, your child's trust. And now, when I tuck Theo in at night, when he wraps his arms around my neck and says, "Mommy, you're my favorite person," I don't just feel victorious. I feel untouchable. Because I didn't just survive Margot's war. I won it on my own terms, with my head held high, and fire in my blood. Some nights, after Theo's asleep and the house settles into its quiet hum, the soft ticking of the old clock, the rustle of the wind through the maple tree outside, I sit on the porch and let myself feel it all. Not the fear, not the rage, the triumph. Because I remember how close I came to losing him, to being erased. I remember the way Margot's voice would slither through the walls of my self-worth, whispering that I wasn't enough, not educated enough, not wealthy enough, not stable enough. But here's what I learned. People like Margot build their power on silence. On doubt. On the belief that you'll keep shrinking to keep the peace. So when you finally stand up, speak up, take up space, they crumble. Not instantly. Not loudly. But inevitably. I see it in the way she vanished from our lives without a fight after the court ruling. No appeals. No letters. No second wave. She knew. Somewhere deep beneath all that arrogance, she knew. She lost. Because I didn't fight like her. I fought smarter. I fought like a mother. And the truth? Theo wasn't just my reason to fight. He was my weapon. Not because he spoke up for me, but because loving him gave me a clarity Margot never counted on. You don't underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. The pain she caused, the manipulation, the humiliation, it didn't harden me. It refined me, sharpened me into something more focused, more resilient. I'm not the same woman I was when Aaron died. Back then, I folded into myself. I tried to make everyone else comfortable while I quietly fell apart. I thought strength meant smiling through the grief. I thought love meant compromise even when it cost me pieces of myself. Not anymore. Now I know better. Strength is saying no and not explaining why. Strength is putting up a boundary and not apologizing when it inconveniences someone else. Strength is choosing your child's well-being over someone's opinion of what motherhood should look like. Revenge didn't come wrapped in flames. It came dressed as peace. A peace I earned. I wake up now with a sense of certainty I never had before. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. And no one, no judge, no grandmother with an agenda, no whispering townspeople gets to write my story for me. I write it. And in this story, I win. Not by destroying anyone, but by refusing to be destroyed. Theo is thriving now. He's louder, sillier. He dances in the kitchen while I cook. He draws superheroes with giant hearts and tiny capes, and always labels the mom bravest of all. He still sleeps with the lights on. Still asks for peanut butter on everything. Still curls up beside me on the couch and rests his head on my shoulder like it's the safest place in the world. And it is. Because I made it that way. Every bedtime story. Every packed lunch. Every court filing. Every sleepless night. Every quiet tear. It all led to this. Revenge, you see, was never really about Margot. It was about reclaiming the truth she tried to rewrite. It was about looking in the mirror and finally seeing a woman who fought and didn't flinch, who broke and rebuilt, who lost so much but never let go of what mattered most. I don't send Margot updates. I don't check on her. She doesn't exist in our world anymore. And that is justice. That is power. That is the kind of revenge that echoes. Quiet. Unshakable. Final. On Theo's 7th birthday, we spent the entire day in mismatched pajamas. He wanted a dinosaur-themed breakfast, so I made green pancakes with chocolate chip eyes and let him eat them with his hands. We didn't post pictures. We didn't invite a crowd. Just us. Just peace. I watched him run through the backyard, the one with the crooked fence and the sandbox that never stays level, and I smiled. Because this messy, beautiful, quiet life, it's what Margot never understood. She thought power meant control. But real power is freedom. Freedom to raise my son with gentleness. To love without performance. To let go of anger not because I'm weak, but because I no longer need it to fuel me. I've already burned down the version of myself that sought approval. What remains is forged in purpose. I used to lie awake at night wondering if I was enough. Now I lie awake marveling at the fact that I never needed to wonder in the first place. Sometimes Theo asks why Grandma doesn't visit anymore. I tell him the truth, or at least, the truth that fits his heart right now. She made some choices that weren't kind. So I had to protect us. He nods, small and understanding in a way only children can be. Then he moves on to something else, a new drawing, a silly question, a snack request. Kids don't linger in bitterness. They live forward. And I've learned to live that way too. Margot lives in a different state now. I heard she's taken up gardening. That she goes to church every Sunday and pretends nothing happened. That's fine. Let her pretend. I don't need the world to know what she did. She knows. I know. That's enough. I don't want revenge that poisons me. I want the kind that heals me. The kind where every sunrise feels like a defiant kind of grace. The kind where the love in my home is louder than any courtroom testimony ever could be. She wanted to take Theo because she thought I couldn't manage without Aaron. But I didn't just manage. I rose. I became someone I wish Aaron could have seen. Not broken. Not fragile. But fierce. Whole. Unshakable. I talk to him sometimes in the quiet moments when the house is still. I tell him we're okay. That Theo is thriving. That I'm not scared anymore. And if there's any justice in this world beyond what a courtroom can offer, I think he knows. He'd be proud. He'd know that when someone came for what mattered most, I didn't run. I didn't crumble. I stood my ground. Not because I wanted war, but because I already knew how to survive loss. And this time, I refused to let it happen again. That's the final chapter of revenge no one talks about, not the courtroom victory, not the dramatic confrontation, but the soft, relentless rebuilding afterward. The quiet joy of a life protected, the calm strength of a woman who walked through fire and kept going, and the knowledge that some wars are won not in the clash of swords, but in the silence that follows when the only sound left is a child's laughter, echoing through a home no one could take away.